Hello, Royal community. Welcome to this week's YouTube Live to Keeping Up the Windsors. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Michelle.
Michelle, oh my gosh, it's been quite a heavy news week this week for the Royals, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. It's been there's been a lot of good and then there's been a lot of controversy. So we're going to talk about all the controversy this week. But before we do, I just wanted to welcome everybody who is subscribed to our channel, all of the new YouTube viewers. Thank you so much for being part of the royal community here at Keeping Up with the Windsors. And if you are not yet subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe bell and also give us a like if you enjoy our content. And remember, if you are watching this live or you are watching the replay, then make sure you put your comments in the comment box and we will have a little discussion as we go along as well. So, Rach, we're going to hit straight into it. We have had a documentary, a scathing documentary over on Channel 4 this week. And it's the Channel 4 dispatches team with the Sunday Times. They've investigated the royal family's private estates, which is the Duchy of Lancaster and the Duchy of Cornwall. Now, I wanted to start this video straight away by saying that we're not going to go into how the royals are funded within the duchies in particular, like how they were set up, why they are there. And also, we're not going to talk about the sovereign grant. So you'll need to do a little bit of research on that if you don't know any of that beforehand, because we're just going to assume you know all those things as we're talking.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, Shell, as well, we've actually spoken in length about these subjects over on our podcast. So go back to our podcast and listen to that. We'll put the link in the description to that as well. Anywhere you can get your podcast, just search Keeping Up the Windsors and we'll come up. But we have spoken about that in length before. So if you want to know about the history and you don't want to do the research, we've done it for you.
And it's really fascinating, actually, isn't it, Rach?
It is.
Yeah. So let's talk about this then. The investigation exposed the amount of money made by each duchy, and the duchies make their money by renting out land, rivers, and seashores to businesses, institutions, public sector bodies, charities, and individual rental properties across the UK, including, so they rent these out, including to the military, the Navy, the NHS. They also rent these out to public schools and fire stations, charities, you name it. There's quite a lot of people that are associated with that. But not only that, the investigation exposed the full list of 5,410 properties connected with both duchies, which has never been released before, not even to the Parliament, because there was an inquest to see whether we could open the books of the duchies to know a bit more about them, and it was denied. So this is a massive amount of investigative journalism that I think it took the team about 5 months to put together. And I want to give you a few examples of what they've unearthed. So last year, the King raised 27.4 million from the Duchy of Lancaster, and Prince William raised 23.6 million from the Duchy of Cornwall. And out of this money, the National Health Service will pay the Duchy of Lancaster £11 million over 15 years to rent a warehouse to store ambulances. And Prince William inherited a duchy deal that will make him over 37 million over, I think it was 125 years for renting Dartmoor Prison. And one thing I will say is, any links that we chat about in our lives. So, for instance, if you want to watch the documentary, if you want to read the Sunday Times article, anything that we mention in here will always be in the description after we've posted. After we finish live, we'll always update those for you. But these kind of big numbers were quite surprising. And this is what I want to go into, actually, Rach, because a lot, for us as royal watchers, as part of the royal community, we know a lot about the duchies. We know that Dartmoor Prison is part of the Duchy of Cornwall. We know that there's, from up and down the country, these duchies hold a lot of land, and they are a really big landlord in the UK. So for us, it wasn't a shock. I think what the backlash comes from the fact that they're set up as like private estates, although actually, when you look at it, they seem like they're more commercial organizations. And with that, unlike businesses or organizations, they have special tax status, and I think this is where the actual controversy comes. They can voluntarily pay income tax. The duchies don't pay corporation tax or capital gains tax if they choose to sell any of their assets, or comply with property laws such as compulsory purchases or purchase orders, which, to be honest, I don't know what that is. I'm not into property law at all. But there's a few things as well, like the Duchy's annual report release only basic details of properties. Excuse me. So there's no real transparency in their reporting. And the way in which the duchy is, like I say, we're not going to go into too much depth about it, but this is inherited land that is given to the monarch or the heir apparent. And it's I feel a lot of things actually, Rach, which we haven't actually spoken to specifically about this, but I wanted to read a little bit from the actual Sunday Times article. It says the king and the prince both pay income tax voluntarily at the highest rate, which is 45% here in the UK, on the duchy money they receive. The last time Charles published his taxes for the year 21-22, he paid income tax of 5.9 million, which amounted to just 25% of a 23 million duchy profit, because he deducted expenses he considered related to his official duties. William says he adopts the same approach as his father, although neither royal has revealed how much they pay in tax for their duchy income since 2022. Charles' predecessor as the head of the Duchy of Lancaster, Queen Elizabeth II, did not declare how much tax she paid. So, right, that's a lot of information. A lot of information. What's your feelings and thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, when you said inherited, this is over 700 years of inherited wealth,
yeah,
which is just mind-blowing when you think of it like that. And there was somebody that was interviewed, and he said, you know, how can it's bizarre in this day and age to think that a king owns all this land. And I think, again, what was controversial about this was the timing, because William's homelessness documentary had just been aired. And so there was a lot of people were saying, well, he's got all of this land. Why doesn't he, if he's, you know, and his initiative is to end homelessness, why doesn't he open more homes on his land to people to make homelessness, you know, end homelessness, should I say? Sorry, I couldn't get my words out then. It's been a long day.
We have had a long day.
Yeah. But, you know, I think some of the things as well, like you mentioned Dartmoor Prison, and there was some things that I wanted to mention. So Dartmoor Prison currently doesn't have any inmates in it because it had a radon gas scare, so they had to remove all the inmates. So it's currently empty. Now, even though it's empty, they still have to pay rent to the Duchy of Cornwall, which is William's duchy, of 1.5 million a year. 1.5 million a year. And also, if there's any repairs needed on that building, the duchy doesn't pay for that. That comes out of the taxpayers' money, which I was a bit like, oh, that's a bit of a sore point, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is what this this program and the article really highlights, is not just how this, we want to say corporation, but it has to be like a private estate with corporate assets. I don't know how they actually worded it, but I just feel a bit weird about it, in the sense that I remember in 2019 there was that ITV documentary, Prince Charles Inside the Duchy. Can you remember watching that on telly, Rach?
Yeah.
It was so fascinating. It went through the duchy, what it was about, Prince Charles really getting into the day-to-day kind of business of actually being a landowner and having to rent his places out and whatever. So, but it was a bit of a propaganda piece when you think about it, because they told you what they wanted to tell you. And now I'm going to say it. I'm putting my hands up right now, royal community. And I believe that the duchies, both duchies, need to be dissolved into the crown estate and it be one big thing. And it comes back to the government and then they get a percentage. I don't think the duchies, in my opinion, knowing what I know now, actually work in the way, because they're set up in the way they're intended to make the monarch and the heir money, but now they're making so much money, and for what reason, basically, and it's at the expense of a lot of taxpayers' money. So I do think it'd be a fairer system if it did get dissolved into the crown estate and it become one big thing. I know that'd be a logistical nightmare. It's 700 years of inherited land, but also I think it's the most fairest thing. And then at least, well, I mean, what do they do with their money, Rach? It's not as if they go to like a 6-star what is it called, like one of those amazing hotels in Dubai or Bahamas, you know, on the Palm or whatever. They don't spend their wealth that way. So what are they doing? Like, I know it's their money, they get to choose what they want to do with it, but if they're getting all this privilege with not paying taxes, then, and I hate to say this because I love the royals. I'm still a monarchist, but I think when it comes to the duchies, it's unfair. It really is, and it doesn't make sense in 2024. What's your thoughts, Rach?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think of it like that it should be dissolved into the crown estate, but I did think that at this point, and there was a lady on there that years ago had, you mentioned it earlier, tried to get, at the time it was Prince Charles, the Duchy of Cornwall, to open their books and be more transparent. And like you said, like it was denied, it was refused, and even the government said it's their private money, they don't need to make this public. But I think another thing was last year the king gave money into the government, didn't they, for the wind turbines? Do you remember?
Yeah. 200 million.
Yeah, and which is fantastic. But then what about all this other wealth? Like you say, like what are they actually doing with it? And I think when you think of the king, for example, that some of that money obviously pays for Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward. He's probably got, you know, a will set up where money will be given to his grandchildren and probably his sons as well. But it's just interesting because, you know, we've always said on the podcast, like, oh, well, we're in a cost of living crisis, or, you know, the NHS is failing. And what got me was you mentioned the Duchy of Lancaster is charging the NHS £11.4 million to store ambulances over 15 years.
Yeah.
It's just a warehouse sitting there to store ambulances, but they're being charged £11.4 million. When you think how much of that money could help so many people and better the NHS.
Yeah, and I think this isn't a case of whether we like the royals or whether we're picking on them. We know we like the royals. We've built our hobby around them, right? We are in their favor. However, when you look at this, I think that comes to integrity and capitalism, because I always think as well, if it's not them, then they'd be renting it from somebody else, right? It'd be a landlord, they'd be renting it from them. But and I think in the Dispatches documentary in particular, they mentioned that the rates of rent were, what's the word, competitive, right? But by not being transparent, how do we know that they are or not? So it's interesting now with this documentary this come out, we've been able to get some of the figures. 11.4 million is a lot of money, right? So I don't know. I did feel a bit ripped off as a taxpayer. I will say that. I did feel a bit ripped off. But if it's not them, it'd be somebody else. But
Yeah.
then they're put in that position because the people want a monarchy, and this 700-year, it seems like it's an inherited land gift, shall we say. I don't think it is being used in the way that it was. Well, it is in the way it's intended, but I think now it's because it's so commercial and maybe even so successful that it just feels like we're being ripped off. Let's put it that way. So love them, but I think they need to be more transparent. 100%.
Yeah, and I also think at the end of the day, both are a business. Both duchies are a business, and you have. I think, what people tend to forget. You think of like the Duchy of Cornwall, Duchy of Lancaster. William and the King, they're not there on a day-to-day basis. They have people running their teams, and obviously figures will go through them at one point or another, but it's not like a day-to-day job for them, right, to keep on top of what's happening in the duchies. And I wanted to read out, actually, a spokesperson for the Duchy of Lancaster said, the Duchy of Lancaster operates as a commercial company managing a broad range of land and property assets across England and Wales. It complies with all relevant UK legislation and regulatory standards applicable to its range of business activities. Whilst His Majesty the King takes a close interest in the work in the Duchy, the day-to-day management of the portfolio is the responsibility of the council and executive team, which goes with what I'm saying. And then a Duchy of Cornwall spokesperson said, the Duchy of Cornwall is a private estate with a commercial imperative, which we achieve alongside our commitment to restoring the natural environment and generating positive social impact for our communities. Prince William became Duke of Cornwall in September 2022. And since has committed to an expansive transformation of the duchy. This includes a significant investment to make the estate net zero by the end of 2032, as well as establishing targeted mental health support for our tenants and working with local partners to help tackle homelessness in Cornwall. So again, that ties into the homelessness point that a lot of people were mentioning, because a lot of people have said in the past, if the King's not living in Buckingham Palace, if you're not going to open it up in a museum, do something else with it. I mean, that's never going to happen. Buckingham Palace, even if the monarchy ended in 300-400 years' time, obviously we're not going to be here. But I would think that would still be going, even if it was a museum and we didn't have a monarchy anymore.
Yeah. Oh, it has ruffled a few feathers, especially amongst the anti-monarchist sentiment in the UK. And it's also shocked a lot of people who don't know much about the royals. We've known about the duchies, we know about the sovereign grant, we know in length about them, actually. And although we have more details now, and it's still shocking, and I do feel very differently than I did before I watched this program. I also just feel like, well, the aristocracy, right? Aristocracy and landowners, that's just part and parcel of the class system within the UK. That doesn't make it right. But I just feel like, actually, if they wanted to put their money where their mouth is, then they would actually change the system, make it more transparent. And why are they exempt from these tax laws? If they are running like a business, they're making millions of pounds in profit, millions of pounds, then actually it shouldn't be voluntary tax and a pat on the back, like, well done, you paid some tax, you didn't have to, well done. No, it just feels like there needs to be a little bit of a change there. And I'd feel a lot better about it, 100%.
Yeah, I think it was interesting, the timing of this, because as I said earlier, this was the same week this came out. We had the documentary about William's homelessness initiative, Homewards, which we spoke briefly about last week. Shell, did you watch the documentary? What did you think?
I did. I watched part 1 and 2, and I'm going to sound like I'm very negative on this live today, but it did not, I believe, it didn't hit the mark for me. I know that sounds really like, what? I thought when Homewood started that they had the initiative, the idea, the people in place already. And day one was when they were getting down to the business of making stuff happen. Watching this documentary, it was like, oh, shall we go and speak to this person over here? Okay, shall we now all talk to these people? You know, and it's just quite an interesting thing that Homewood became an initiative as it went. So it was like they did it as they were going, and that was something that was really surprising to me, because I thought they had all the businesses and the support in place first. But it was quite interesting listening to the conversations William was having with, for instance, the top guy at the big issue, and it was, I was thinking, oh, they're not on board yet. Okay, right, okay. I was a bit confused about how the actual setup of Homewood was, but I loved listening to people's stories. And it's a very ambitious task, isn't it? But I mean, what did you think, Rach?
Yeah, I must admit, I've only watched episode 1 so far. I've not watched episode 2 because this other documentary came out. I was just like... and the thing is, I mean, you know what it's like, Shell. Sometimes you're like royal overload. It's kind of like you have to step back a bit. And sometimes, I think I said to you one evening, I was like, my brain, I was like, I've not got the mental capacity for this right now. I need to like step away for a minute and not be in the royal bubble as such. And so I did watch episode 1, and I really liked that they, like you said, like they had people that were sharing their stories, and someone that's actually on their team is a woman that was homeless at some point, so she's got first-hand experience. So it's good that it's been shined a light on, and I think, you know, this being on TV can only have a positive impact, but it was just a bit crappy, should I say?
Yeah,
the timing of it was just, I think it would have hit more if this other documentary hadn't come out when it did.
But I think I completely agree with you that the Dispatches was strategically placed time-wise, because you've got the Duchy of Lancaster, the Duchy of Cornwall, who actually rent out to individuals, and part of their housing stock, some of it, I can't remember the percentage in the documentary now, but part of them were not even eligible for the correct energy rating, you know. And it's just, oh my gosh, no, you gotta sort. And I know that's not the King or William's day-to-day dealings, if that makes sense. It's not their fault, but it bodes badly on their PR, doesn't it? And their ethos and everything they're about. So I really wanted this documentary with William to like knock it out of the park, and it fell short for me. I know that sounds like I'm being negative, but it didn't do what I think I was expecting it to do.
Yeah. Royal community, if you've watched it, let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you've watched the documentary about the finances, about the duchies of Cornwall and Lancaster, again, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts, because us as royal fans, let's get talking. Like, this is what it's all about, right?
Yeah, and we all got a different opinion, I guess, and especially as well, being a taxpayer myself, I feel as if I want to get good value for my money, you know, with that 11 million and where it's going. So
yeah,
not that I did actually put 11 million in, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And actually, a quick point, Shell, you mentioned that. I think when we've discussed finances before and how much we pay towards the royal family, which is, at the last time I looked, it was like £1.29.
Mm-hmm.
We always said, oh, that's really good value for money for everything that they do, and the, you know, the economy and the tourism, etc. But then watching this documentary, I think that's where you kind of are like, this doesn't sit the same as that £1.29.
Yeah, because it's not £1.29, is it?
No.
Yeah, and especially that £1.29 is part of the sovereign grant. It's not part of the duchies, and that's the reason why I think it should be amalgamated all together, because it would be the fairest thing, and they would get a payout or whatever each year. I'd be happy with that, but Yeah, it doesn't feel like the fairest system at the moment. Right, Rach. Now, moving unilaterally from that, talking to the Duchy of Lancaster, the king has cut off Prince Andrew's £1 million per year allowance, and this was all over the papers this week. And that would have come out with the Duchy of Lancaster money, right?
Yeah, that would have been the private money. Although I would love to know, it would never be revealed, but I would love to know what was in the Queen's will, how much money she left.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, those wills are sealed for like I think it's like over 100 years. So we'll never know in our lifetime. But it would just be so interesting, particularly because of everything that's happened with Andrew the past few years. And we know that he doesn't have a job, does he? He doesn't do anything now. You just see him riding his horse around Windsor grounds, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, his security was pulled, I think it was last year, wasn't it? So he's now got no allowance and no security. He's still paying rent for Royal Lodge, a 30 room mansion. And I wonder whether he will actually have to move out at some point. It is quite it needs a lot of refurbishments though, Royal Lodge. So it would make sense for him to move somewhere else and for it to get fixed up. But that's Prince Andrew. I mean, what's your thoughts on him having his allowance taken off?
I mean, it sounds a bit. A man in his 60s had his allowance taken away. Boo hoo! You know? Where's my allowance? I want some allowance.
Oh my gosh, £1 million a year. Come on.
Yeah. And like,
Wow.
again, like, what does he do? Like, it's not like he does engagements anymore. You don't ever see him out publicly with Fergie or Beatrice and Eugenie. You just don't see him unless he's at Windsor Great Park. So
Or
I'd love
Pizza
to know.
Hut. Or
No,
Pizza
Cheryl,
Express.
you always say that, and I always
Pizza
say
Hut.
it's Pizza Express. Come on, you got to class it up a little bit. Pizza Express. Oh gosh.
So funny. Well, that's as much as we're hearing from the Prince Andrew part of the royals this week. And we also heard some news about Queen Camilla. Rach, what was going on?
Yeah, so Buckingham Palace announced that Queen Camilla, her engagements would be stopped this week. She wouldn't be attending any engagements because she had a chest infection. So a lot of people were like, oh, I hope she's okay. But it seems like she's on the mend, as it was announced that she will host a reception next week to celebrate literature shortlisted for this year's Booker Prize. So
amazing.
That's good to hear. And also, we're getting another royal documentary which is on Queen Camilla, and it's coming out next Monday, the 11th of November on ITV at 9:00, and it's called Her Majesty Behind Closed Doors. And this follows the Queen for over a year, highlighting her efforts to raise awareness of domestic and sexual violence. And this sees her life's work and what she gets up to behind the scenes. I didn't even know about this. And it wasn't until another royal fan account posted about it. And I was just like, why have I not seen this? I've not even seen this advertised on TV. Maybe it's because it's on the same channel that William's Homewards documentary was out on. So maybe they were waiting for that to finish and then they would start promoting Queen Camilla's documentary. But yeah, I've not seen this advertised on TV. I only saw it advertised afterwards on ITV on their royal social account. So yeah, but again, like, I think it will be an interesting documentary, you know, because it's Queen Camilla, there's going to be some awful people out there saying God knows what, but at the end of the day, this is about her work and the work that she's doing, and we've always championed what she does and in her charities, haven't we? Especially when it comes to sexual violence, domestic violence, because she has been working on these awareness initiatives for a number of years.
Yeah. The trailer for it was promoted, and it's the first time I saw the trailer just before William's documentary. And I was as shocked as you, Rach. Like, hang on a minute. what's this? We haven't heard about this,
Yeah.
you know? And it was, I think it was actually the wrong time. I know loads of royal fans going to be watching it. Of course, it's the right time, Michelle. However, it was the wrong time because it just looked like the PR royal bubble was just trying to get out as much positive PR as possible. Like, oh, here's William, he's trying to end homelessness. Here's Camilla, she's trying to do to it just felt a little bit like disingenuous. And again, I'm like, it's amazing the work that she does, raising awareness, and it's so needed. So I'm actually going to be really interested to watch it. I especially liked watching the documentary on her. Was it her 70th birthday, Rach?
Yeah,
that was brilliant. I loved watching that documentary.
Yeah, with her sister. One of her sisters was on it, wasn't she?
Yeah,
absolutely. That was really good. But yeah, I agree. Why has ITV done it literally, putting it out literally a week after Williams? Like,
yeah,
why not put it out in a few weeks' time? When the focus, this at the moment, obviously this week has kind of been a big week for William because you've had that Dispatches documentary, you've had Homewards, and now we're going to move into the Earthshot Prize Awards. So it's been a big week for William. So he's been in South Africa this week for this year's Earthshot Prize Awards and the United for Wildlife Summit. Among the many engagements carried out at the Earthshot, the Earthshot Climate Youth Leadership Program was announced. Now, this is a new initiative. This is a new program that was announced for this year's Earthshot Prize Awards. 120 young people from 38 countries across Africa and Southeast Asia were in Cape Town, and all these young people have ideas and innovations to tackle climate change. So if you head on over to the Earthshot Prize social media accounts and the Prince and Princess of Wales social media accounts, you'll see lots more information, photos, videos, all about this, and it actually goes into depth of some of the ideas that all these young people have, which has been really interesting to hear about. We saw William join some students for a game of rugby.
I don't think I saw this engagement, Rachel. What happened?
Did you not?
No.
So this is set up with the Atlas Foundation, which is a charity that supports deprived children through rugby training and digital education. And what was really funny about this is he wasn't in like a sports kit. Obviously, this is William. He was in like his chinos. But there was these kids and you could hear one of them go, quick, let's tackle a prince. Like they just wanted to like get on over on him because he's a prince. Really made me laugh. It was so funny. And then we also had Earthshot Ambassador Robert Irwin spending time with William, where we found out that William's favourite African animal is a cheetah.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
And also, I love Robert Irwin. I mean, most of you, royal community, will probably remember his father, Steve Irwin, who sadly passed away. But whenever you see Robert on social media, he's just such a upbeat, positive person. And you can tell, like, his whole life, even though he's still really young himself, but his whole life is to do with animals, conservation. He has, like, a big role at Australia's zoo.
Mm-hmm.
So
same with his sister Bindi, because they're both just such advocates for wildlife, but also to continue their father's work. And like you said, they've got such a positivity, and you just, I don't know what it is. There's a gravitational pull towards them when they're on screen. So to add William into that as well, it's like, oh, this is a great match together, you know?
Yeah. So it was great to see them together, but also just to see Robert on his own. And I would actually recommend, if you don't already, follow Robert's social media account, his official one on Instagram. It's really interesting, and he posts loads of things from his time at the zoo. William also met South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. We've spoken about Cyril before because with state visit, that was
it 2022, wasn't it, the state visit?
Yeah, I think so. It was the first one when Charles became king, wasn't it? And then William also attended the United for Wildlife Summit, where he gave a speech in which he said, what happens over the next 5 years, especially in relation to stopping the illegal wildlife trade, is crucial for the future of life on Earth. Again, head on over to the official social media accounts because you can see his speech in full. And the Earthshot Prize Awards is actually taking place right now as we speak. So be really interested to see what's going to come out of that later.
And it's also live on YouTube, isn't it? So if you go over to I've popped the link in the description, head on over to the YouTube channel, and I'm sure you can watch it on replay or whatever. But did you see William arriving at the Earthshot Prize Awards, right?
Yes, I did. And like, I get that the Earthshot Prize isn't about fashion. It's totally not. But this outfit was so mismatched. I was just like, come on, at this point, William, you need to be working with a stylist. You're a future statesman. Like, if you're not going to wear a full suit. So if you've not seen the pictures, he's wearing a Prince of Wales checked blazer, which is vintage. So good for that. That's a really good point. The trainers that he's wearing, sustainable. Brilliant. But then he's wearing like this Prince of Wales check, and then down below is like a dark colour. Then he's got the contrast of the white. Then his shirt's like a pale blue. It's just like all over the place.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's because it's a warm country out there. You know, I remember back when he did the first ever Earthshot Prize here at Alexandra Palace in London. It was a really cold night. He was in like a blazer and a what was it, like a turtleneck kind of jumper, wasn't it? And
yeah.
I guess maybe he's just going with it. Like, yay, I'm in South Africa and this is what I'm going to wear. It didn't feel awards worthy, though, I will say that.
But I think as well, maybe because they have so many young people attending this year that they set up this new leadership program. Maybe he wanted to look more cool. I don't know. I was going to say something really that would make me sound really old.
Yeah, you'll be showing your age then, right?
Yeah. But what I have really enjoyed this week is seeing William. I don't know if you've seen Shell. It's been all over social media. He's been sporting this Papa bracelet, like a friendship bracelet. Yeah. And he actually said that it was given to him by Charlotte when they went to see Taylor Swift.
Oh.
And then when he was going to South Africa, she gave it back to him, and she said, like, make sure you don't lose it. So that's why he's been wearing it, basically, to like, you know, representing home.
Yeah. Oh, that's so lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. And also we have a update on Catherine. He said that she's doing really well and that hopefully she's watching tonight, cheering me on. He also said that she's been amazing this whole year, and I know she'll be really keen to see tonight. So just a little update about Catherine, which I thought was a nice touch. So yeah, all in all, it's been a busy royal week, show, hasn't it?
It has been super busy. And yeah, it's again, as a royal watcher this week, it has been very up and down, to the point where I've really enjoyed or wanted to watch the homeless documentary, and I was especially having it like one night on Wednesday and then Thursday. It's like, yay, 2 nights in a row. And then everything else that followed that. But I will say this, Earthshot Prize Awards is one of my favourite times of the year, and it's one of my favourite royal engagements. I don't tend to say that very often, but I love it so much because I do really believe in the Earthshot Prize, and I think it's it's a wonderful thing, and I think it's probably the creme de la creme of William's work. And a lot of people will probably say it's something else, but for me, I just absolutely love it. So I'm really looking forward to watching tonight and to kind of cheer on everybody, whether they win or lose. There's no real losers, is there? You know, everybody gets a kind of mentored in a way and helped. They might not get the £1 million, but they get the extra support. And I think that network is really important to, get the, climate change and the oceans and all the other different topics. I think it's like I say, it's a highlight. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen tonight. Are you going to be watching it, Rach?
Not tonight, but I will watch it on catch up. Because it's getting late now.
Yeah, it is getting late.
I just also wanted to mention, it was announced that next week the King will host a reception with the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester in attendance and Prince Edward. I can't remember off the top of my head if Queen Camilla is going or not. And it's to do with UK film and television, which we know that Edward has particular initiatives and charities that he works with. So it'd be really interesting to see that. And we've seen Sophie on a few engagements this week as well, which has been really lovely to see, especially with the Guide Dogs UK.
Mm-hmm. So I want to bring in two little comments that we've had. The first, obviously, we're talking about right at the start of the show where we said, should we tax the royals? Elizabeth Smith said, yes, of course. Why should we pay? Going off the royalty, I think that's how they say that. And then there was two from T. Randall. One said, they pay millions in tax each year. Look at their books. I think that's probably what that's meant to say, versus going off an article, which I guess is what you're saying about the difference between reading the Sunday Times article versus millions in tax. I think that might potentially millions in tax. Yes. But we don't know because we haven't been told for 2022, 2023. We do know for 21, 22. So we can't give you figures on that. And then also, again, T. Randall said, your government has failed the homeless people. It's been independent charities that have helped them. So to have Prince William step up to help and the right people to help should be applauded. I 100% agree with that. 100% agree.
Be interesting to know where you're from, T. Randall, like what country you live in.
Yeah. I was also going to say, Rach, that I really do hope the very best for Homewards, and I hope that everybody involved, because they've got some really great people involved in this, that it builds year by year, because we've only really seen the first year of this. So by the end of the initiative, which is in 5 years' time, what impact that would have, because they are making an impact already, but it's just going to be interesting, especially I think next year the Duchy of Cornwall house, the 24 flats are going to be built by then. So again, we will see what happens. So I know what we were saying earlier about William and with this homeless initiative, maybe you should build more. He is doing that, but maybe 24 flats could be 100. I don't know. That's for another topic. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your comments. Regardless of whether you believe, you're on Rachel and I, like you think Rachel and I have a point, don't have a point. It doesn't really matter. Like everyone has their own opinion, especially when it comes to the way the royals are financed. And I think it's also one of the sticking points between people who are pro-monarchy and anti-monarchy. And it's interesting, isn't it, Rach, how you and I, we're monarchists, and this has kind of rattled something within us this week.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really about that documentary surprised me. Like I wasn't like, like really shocked by things that I was seeing, because I've always understood that the duchies are businesses. But yeah, I think maybe at this point there is more transparency that needs to be out there. But then, it's their private money, and I don't know how much tax you pay, Shell. Like, I don't know how much you earn a year. So
yeah,
who am I to say, well, we need to know that information for them. So yeah.
I guess the only thing with that though, Rach, is if it is a business, it's not being run like a business, because it's not subject to the taxes that a business in the UK would be subjected to. So I think that's where, again, there's that other sticking point. We could talk for hours, but we're not going to. Have a lovely week, Royal community. Thank you so much for joining us. And make sure to pop your comments in the comment box. And we'll see you next week on Keeping Up with the Windsors. See you then.
Bye, Royal community.